What's up, everyone? Mike from What the Fun. This debate section is from our latest episode of Test Your Might, the weekly video game debate show. The full episode is found on any podcast app of choice, with Apple and Spotify links down below. Thanks for watching. Enjoy.
But are you guys ready for the namesake of the show, Test Your Might? First question for you, Cicero. Right. Lies of P is a blood-borne, inspired action RPG starring Pinocchio as he explores a nightmarish city. So I want you to pitch me a different Disney character-themed Dark Souls type game, better than your opponent. Cicero, you are up first, and then Brian, you go ahead right after.
So, we've seen lots of things in this world, but we haven't seen enough of this world. And that is why the game that we'll be playing, that Souls-like that we'll be playing, will be Tron Legacy of the Badlands.
Okay. All right, we got Tron Legacy of the Badlands. Interesting. Brian, what you got over there?
Yeah, that sounds, a thing I've seen before. But I was doing some deep dives because Disney does own kind of everything. And so I was like, I could pick, a common Disney IP, or I could dive deep. And so I remember that Disney owns A&E Entertainment. And A&E Entertainment owns Chris Angel Mind Freak. And Chris Angel is basically already a FromSoft character. Chris Angel would just fit in any FromSoft game. And so we are doing Chris Angel Mind Freak, a game in which the magic is the focus, and also things die a lot. Potentially Chris Angel. But he can come back from the dead because Chris Angel.
All right. We've got Tron on Cicero's side and Chris Angel on Brian's side. Go ahead. Unchained.
Well, Chris Angel's a mind freak, that's for sure. But you could make Chris Angel DLC, right? Like, you could make Chris Angel DLC for any of the FromSoft games, and he'd fit right in, and that would be perfect for any of those games. But that's not what we're trying to make here. What we're trying to have here is something unique, something different. And that is why we're going Tron Legacy of the Badlands. We're in the Badlands. This is an area of data that had been corrupted. And the number of creatures that are here that look like they are normal but aren't. So like you'll see like the flying tanks that come around, but instead of those planks, they have tentacles, and they're flying around and they're moving back and forth, and you've got to try and defeat them to keep going, to figure out exactly what's going on in the Badlands and how you can fix the corruption. And because it's a Souls-like, it's going to be tough. And that's, the thing is, we've seen FromSoft do very similar versions of these games, and they're very macabre, but they're all very much samey. They're very samey. This will be the same thing, but different.
Okay, so a couple things I'm gonna answer back on there. First, it's a lot of visually what you're saying sounds very The Surge, which is a great game, but they made two of them already, that are basically Souls-likes with that kind of tech setting in a lot of ways, including literally having robot-y enemies with tentacles. And on top of that, like, some of the things that, besides the like difficulty, another big element of the Souls-like is there's fashion, right? That's a huge part of Souls. And there is, a bajillion weapons to collect. Tron, notoriously, your weapon's a data disk. You don't see weapons in that series outside of data disks. and then the fashion is different color tones of the same suits generally. And so like a lot of the kind of side key elements to the genre, besides just it is hard, kind of clash with Tron's aesthetic, right? It's neat lines, it's bright colors. It's not the sort of like a decrepit thing where something leaps out of a corner at you. Fashion-wise, Chris Angel, meanwhile, is over the top in a way that players who are into fashion souls are likely to love. These people love putting weird things on their head of their characters. They love running around without shoes. They love the general energy that you see with spiked leather jackets, which is coincidentally a huge part of what Chris Angel wears. Also, people like making way over the top faces, which there's obviously going to be that makeup customization because Chris Angel loves him some makeup. On top of that, a key element of the Souls-like is the thing that when you die, you can respawn, right? And so Chris Angel's being an escape artist already has kind of a built-in thing for constantly escaping from death as he dies, and then reappearing in a different place, because again, that is literally how magic works in his shows. On top of that, you can have a whole bunch of different weapons with the various different like tools he has used, be it chains, swords, etc. And on top of that, because you do have more of actual magic, which is another huge element of Souls-likes, right? Like if you play like Elden Ring, as much as there are stabby play styles, there are make a giant azure comet and launch it at enemies with the Kamehameha energy. I think there's a lot more ways to bring that in without fundamentally recreating the setting, which just doesn't exist for Tron. So you'd have to essentially de-Tron Tron, and I'm not sure the Tron fans are going to be up for that.
Well, so that's the thing, right? There are a bunch of things, Brian, that you mentioned that I think help illustrate the point of why this game is so brilliant, and that is the first is I intentionally use Tron Legacy of the Badlands because it invokes Tron Legacy. And if there's a few things out of Tron Legacy that you know is that the fashion and the music were crazy even for Tron, right? That there were lots of things in Tron Legacy that seemed avant-garde fashion wise, in spite of the fact that we're in this digital world where everything is kind of the same, and we're in the Badlands where things aren't as neat as you would expect, and that's it's going to be those anachronisms that's going to make the game as unique as it needs to be, so that you could so that it can stand apart and be something brand new and different in the space.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, like, you keep saying it's brand new in the space, but like you've not spoken at all about like how Tron is hooking into these mechanics. You've not spoken at all about those kind of elements. So I'd like to hear you talk about like how is Tron mechanically going to be doing something interesting there?
Well, so
how is it actually bringing value to the text?
So we're going to be using one thing that we're going to have in this game that's unique to FromSoft games is there will be a vehicle. You'll be able to have vehicles and travel with those vehicles. Mobility is going to be really interesting. And Tron is like to be able to see Tron use some of, or it won't be Tron, it'll be someone in the Tron universe. So, so you'll have an avatar. It won't actually be Tron. But that person will have agility and will develop the ability to do things like copy themselves or transfer themselves from one place to another, almost like magic. Those are going to be some of the RPG elements that you wind up having. And of course, there are going to be weapons, right? Like, it's the data disk is just where you have all your data. That's what you will feed up to the MCP or whatever when you're for your save points. But everything else, there'll be long staffs and There will be projectile weapons. There'll be all sorts of different types of weapons in the game. Just again, harken back to Tron Legacy. There were far more weapons than just a data disk, and you'll be able to see more things in this world that will create a more complete framework of the world of Tron that we've always wanted to see, and that's why people are going to want to play this game.
Yeah, so I don't doubt that people will want to play it. I do doubt that it'll be better. In part because Disney tends to be more hyper-controlling as well of its quote-unquote, like, kid-friendly IPs, which Tron is one of. Chris Angel, because it's under the A&E brand, is already fundamentally aimed at an M audience, which means you can have a bunch of weird little freaks, which is the general energy of these games, in a way that I think Tron, you're going to have to aim for a T rating, and I think a T rating is going to decrease the experience of the game.
So, in regards to the last Brian section, Disney is not part of this at all. You know, Life of P is completely a different standalone thing for Pinocchio. Disney doesn't have a hand, you know, pulling the strings per se.
Right. Well, yes,
for
Pinocchio is. Yeah,
so
Pinocchio
this would be also
part.
something separate from Disney. They wouldn't have their hands on the game itself that you guys are creating. So,
okay.
I like both of these ideas. Brian, yours is out there, and that's good. I like that a lot. Tron is a little home, you know, it feels home, but the visuals is a huge change for Dark Souls in general. From a FromSoft game in general, it's going to be a huge overhaul on the visuals alone. It's going to be its own thing, kind of like Bloodborne was. You did kind of harken back, Cicero, you did harken back with the different aspects that Tron or your avatar would have. I like that as well. Chris Angel, I love it. I love it so much. I just don't think it would work, Brian. I don't think it would work because he is a magician at heart. Sure, you'd have a lot of magic, but Dark Souls is known for that hand-to-hand combat, and Chris Angel is not really a skillful individual, you know, per se. He's a showman. He's an entertainer. But Tron is a hero, and that's the difference there. I think Cicero's got you on this one with Tron, Legacy of the Badlands. Is that correct? That's the correct title?
Yes. Yeah, Legacy of the Badlands.
All right.